You ever had someone hate you so much, they'd rather see your success go up in flames than mind their own business? That's exactly what happened to me the day Karen decided my Tesla was her personal target. It started on a crisp Saturday morning. I had just finished washing and detailing my Tesla Model S, a car I had worked years to afford. The sleek silver paint gleamed in the sunlight, and I couldn't help but admire how far I'd come in life. That's when Karen, my next-door neighbor, appeared at the end of my driveway. She had that familiar scowl plastered across her face, the one I'd grown used to since moving in 6 months ago. "Nice toy," she sneered, arms crossed. "But cars like that don't belong in this neighborhood. You're making the rest of us look bad." I tried brushing it off. "It's just a car, Karen. Everyone's free to drive what they want." But that wasn't enough for her. She shook her head and muttered something about outsiders and show-offs. I didn't pay much attention then, but I probably should have. Later that night, as I stepped outside to grab a package, I froze. My Tesla had long, deliberate scratches carved into both doors. Someone had keyed it. My stomach dropped, and I knew immediately who had done it. Karen's blinds twitched suspiciously across the street, but she didn't bother hiding. She was watching me. My blood boiled. That car wasn't just a vehicle. It was a symbol of the hard work and sacrifices I had made. I reported it to the police, but with no cameras catching her in the act, there wasn't much they could do. That's when I decided if Karen wanted a war, she was going to get one. What she didn't realize was that my work in tech and renewable energy had connections she couldn't even imagine. I wasn't just some random guy with a fancy car. I had the means to turn her petty vendetta into the biggest mistake of her life, and little did she know by the time I was finished, she wouldn't just regret scratching my Tesla, she'd be working for me. The morning after the scratches, I sat in my garage staring at the Tesla. Every mark carved into the paint felt personal, like Karen had taken a knife to my pride. But anger wasn't going to fix anything. I needed a plan, and unlike her, I believed in strategy over tantrums. I called a buddy of mine, Ryan, who ran a private security business. He owed me a favor from some software work I'd helped him with. Within 2 days, my house was outfitted with discreet, high-definition cameras covering every inch of the driveway. If Karen tried anything again, I'd have the evidence to nail her. Sure enough, it didn't take long. A week later, I woke up to the sound of faint scratching outside. My heart raced as I checked the live feed on my phone. There she was, Karen, hunched over, dragging a set of keys along the side of my car. She wasn't even subtle. I marched outside, phone in hand. "Having fun, Karen?" She jumped, dropping the keys. I wasn't doing anything. "Really?" I held up my phone, the footage clearly showing her in the act. Her face drained of color. "You're going to regret this," she hissed, but her voice lacked confidence. The police didn't see it that way. With the video, they finally had enough to charge her with property damage. Her fine was hefty, and the judge ordered her to pay restitution for the repairs. But while that should have been the end of it, I knew Karen wasn't the type to let things go. True enough, a week later she tried a different tactic. Flyers started appearing around the neighborhood, claiming I was running an illegal business out of my home, disturbing the peace with loud machinery and toxic fumes. It was laughable. I worked remotely on clean energy software. But Karen's lies were spreading like wildfire. Some neighbors started looking at me differently, hesitant, cautious. That was the moment I realized Karen's attacks weren't about my car. They were about me. She hated the idea of someone she couldn't control moving into her perfect little world. But she made one crucial mistake. While she was busy trying to ruin me, she underestimated just how connected I really was. I wasn't just some guy in tech. I had recently launched a startup focused on sustainable automation. And as fate would have it, I was looking to expand my workforce. What Karen didn't know then was that soon enough, she'd be begging me for a job, and I'd be more than happy to give her one. Karen's downfall started quietly, almost too quietly. After the court ordered her to pay restitution, she avoided me for weeks. Her blinds no longer twitched when I pulled into my driveway, and her snide comments stopped echoing across the yard. At first, I thought maybe she'd finally realized she couldn't win, but I should have known better. Word spread through the neighborhood that Karen had lost her part-time job at the local realtor's office. Apparently, the company wasn't thrilled about the bad publicity from her vandalism charges. I didn't celebrate. It wasn't my doing, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel like poetic justice. Meanwhile, my startup was gaining traction. Investors were showing interest, and we had several contracts lined up with eco-conscious developers. The only problem was manpower. I needed a reliable assistant. Someone organized enough to handle scheduling, paperwork, and endless calls, but desperate enough to put up with my brutal work pace. That's when the universe handed me the biggest twist of all. One afternoon, I stopped by a local coffee shop to meet with a client. And who did I see behind the counter, struggling to work the register? Karen. Her posture was stiff, her cheeks flushed red as soon as she noticed me. "Welcome," she muttered, avoiding eye contact. I could have laughed right there, but I held it in. Instead, I placed my order and gave her a polite smile. "Hope you're doing well, Karen." Her jaw clenched. She rang me up without another word. Over the next few weeks, I kept running into her around town. It was clear she was struggling, barely keeping afloat. The thought of her once icy superiority crumbling in real time was satisfying. But it also sparked an idea. If Karen needed work, and I needed someone to handle the grunt tasks, maybe this was the perfect setup. So one morning, I left a business card in her mailbox. No note, no explanation. Just my name, company, and number. 2 days later, she called. Her voice was tight, shaky, and full of forced pride. "I don't need your pity, but I'm open to discussing opportunities." I almost grinned into the phone. "It's not pity, Karen. It's business. Come in for an interview tomorrow, and let's see if we can make this work." The silence on her end lasted a good 5 seconds before she finally muttered, "Fine, I'll be there." For the first time, I realized this story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about control. And soon Karen would be working under me. Karen showed up to the interview 10 minutes late, clutching a worn leather purse and wearing a smile that looked more forced than friendly. Her usual arrogance was still there, but I could tell it had been chipped away by desperation. She sat across from me in my small office, hands folded tightly. "So," she said, clearing her throat, "what exactly would this job require?" I leaned back in my chair. "Basic administrative work, emails, scheduling, keeping track of documents, and handling client calls. Nothing glamorous, but it pays well and offers stability." Interested? Her eyes flickered with conflict. On one hand, she needed the job. On the other, working for the man she had tried so hard to destroy must have felt like swallowing fire. "Yes," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I extended the contract across the desk. "Then welcome aboard, Karen." The weeks that followed were unlike anything I could have imagined. At first, Karen kept her distance, stiff and cold, doing her tasks with robotic precision. She refused small talk, avoided eye contact, and signed emails with clipped formality. But little by little, the cracks began to show. She started staying late to finish tasks. She asked questions about the business. She even, begrudgingly, complimented the Tesla once, mumbling something about it being efficient. It was surreal. The same woman who had keyed my car, spread lies about me, and tried to humiliate me in front of the entire neighborhood, was now taking coffee orders from clients and answering phones on my behalf. And the best part? She was good at it. Organized, punctual, and surprisingly sharp once she set her mind to something. I began to see what her life might have been like before bitterness consumed her, a woman who once had potential, buried under layers of resentment. One evening, as we were wrapping up late at the office, she looked at me and sighed. "You know, I never hated your car. I hated what it represented. You had everything I wanted, and I couldn't stand it." For the first time, there was no venom in her tone, just honesty. I nodded. "Maybe this job isn't punishment, Karen. Maybe it's a second chance." She didn't reply, but the faintest smile tugged at her lips before she gathered her things and left. Life has a funny way of turning enemies into unlikely allies. Karen may have tried to ruin my Tesla, but in the end, she became part of the engine driving my success. And that's how my neighbor went from vandal to employee. What do you think? Worth the twist? If you enjoyed seeing how Karen's story flipped upside down, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next crazy twist.